order this meeting of Plain Township Board of Trustees for Tuesday, August 22nd. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before us, we have our agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections by fellow board members or department heads at this time?
Yes, I'd like to add the Tinsel annexation to unfinished business number 2.
Are there any other? Okay, the agenda will stand as amended. First thing, we don't have anything from the sheriff. For the sheriff's report, is there anybody in the audience that has anything for the sheriff's office? Okay. Unfinished business, Mrs. Campbell?
Yeah, item number 1 is a resolution to amend Resolution 17-309 to add Anthony Roofing for the purchase of payment for the installation vinyl siding soffit repairs and miscellaneous to read $6,545 to cover additional work to be taken from Fund 01B02.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, just clarify, this is for the work we've had done down at the old station before.
Yes, and I can have Chuck clarify, they had found some...
They had a couple pieces of plywood that were rotted that they wanted to replace, and then some back returns to completely make it maintenance free. So it was like $700-ish more to do that.
But since we did a resolution, we had to amend it.
Yeah, none of that stuff will they ever find without tearing it off.
Not until they took it off.
And
Is that right?
Even with that cost, it's still cheaper than the next
Yes, it
closest
was
bid.
by far.
Okay. Further discussion, roll call please.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And then item number 2 is I'd like to turn to the board. As you're aware, we had an extension for the Tinsel annexation until tomorrow. Mr. Lino and Eric Williams have met with the city of Canton in regards to the CETA that the board and Eric has worked so hard and long on. And with that said, I'll turn it over to whatever board member would like to address that and give us any further instructions. I know tomorrow's the hearing only where they just check the boxes to move forward. It's not the hearing, it's just that the formality checking the boxes for the hearing.
It's called review.
Review.
Yeah. We object on the 6 statutory criteria that they'll look at tomorrow.
Well, I don't know if you guys don't mind, I'll start first. Obviously, because of the context of this topic and some of the discussions, I haven't been able to say too much publicly. However, this board has worked diligently and vigorously over at least the last 9 months, if not up to a year, to try to get an economic development agreement done with Canton. And it was predicated on the basis that, yep, we're doing things new, this collaboration, this is great. We actually took the lead on drafting the language and actually having to provide it and re-provide it because it somehow got lost once the send button got set. And ultimately, through the culmination of efforts, you know, I know when I was in Quantico last week, Commissioner Smith had reached out to me, gave him a little backdrop as to what we were negotiating through, and he said, hey, he goes, see if you can get an extension from the city, see if we can button things up on this as far as terms and conditions. Ultimately, Mr. Williams and Trustee Lino went down there under the auspices that we were going to button up some details on this economic development agreement. Only to essentially have the equivalent, from my perspective, I'm not going to put words in my fellow board members' mouth, but a bait and switch approach. And that Canton essentially went from, yep, let's collaborate, let's do this, let's do that, to, nope, we're gonna do this as an annexation because we're in such dire financial straits that we need every dollar that we can get. And quite frankly, it equates we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. However, yet, as a steward, along with my other fellow trustees, of our constituents' money, I can't in good faith not fight this to the nth extent that we can possibly push this, knowing full well that the pure annexation is nothing more than a land grab and a revenue grab to try to fix their short-term issues, but will furthermore place projected increase burden to the township, where our constituents have previously, with overwhelming support, passed increases for roads, you know, from a maintenance to our safety services, fire and EMS, which we are fully staffed up to. And I know from some of our prior discussions, we know based upon number projections of what's projected to come into the hall and traffic around there, there's naturally going to be a certain percentage of calls that's going to trigger in there, above and beyond what we already do today, which our levy renewal and increase was predicated on adding more bodies to further improve that speed of response. Well, because of mutual and automatic aid agreements, there's the potential that we're going to be strained just due to pure proximity of that locate of our fire station over there off of Fulton. And I think that it's absolutely despicable that they're not taking that into context. And we could have created a win-win-win. A win for the property owner, who quite frankly already has city water, but because if they're looking to level this property, as soon as they go to construct a new one, cities essentially threaten them and hold them hostage over a water connection that's already really there. We're talking a different structure. This is a fundamental issue and a problem, as far as I'm concerned, that even the folks down in Columbus absolutely have to take a look at. Because, I mean, robbing one community so you can try to fix your own issues that are still ultimately going to lead to additional maintenance issues for us, it should not be on our taxpayers under no circumstance, given there's no sharing in that responsibility. I vehemently object to this, and whatever we have to do to push this as far through the legal process to either see if we can get some type of getting them to come back to the table, which I think is very nil based upon what's recently occurred. I think it's important that our residents also know that this board, as we always have, has always fought annexations, because we're trying to preserve and protect our boundaries, and because we've been good fiscal stewards from department heads to elected officials, because another community has not been able to manage their infrastructure and their budget accordingly. We're again the one that's on the short end of the stick here. So that being said, I do know from my conversation with Commissioner Smith today, I've made him aware of it. He shares some of the same thoughts based upon his prior tenure as Canton Township Trustee, and I would anticipate that those will be playing into the dialogue as they go through this process. But I think we absolutely need to ensure we have representation at that hearing down there, just to reinforce our displeasure with this, because if we can't get this done, there's no way in hell I'm going to entertain other opportunities that reach right into the middle of Plain Township where there's no continuity or direct benefit, which is exactly what was proposed in the meeting to Trustee Lino and Mr. Williams. I just, in good nature, can't do it. So that's what I wanted to speak to in regards to that. I mean, do either of you, as fellow trustees, have any additional thoughts or just general comments on this?
I'm old school annexation. I think just about everybody that I have encountered through this Hall of Fame Village process has said, try to stop annexation. I'm old school. I may have testified at annexation hearings more than anybody that's been at this table. So I know how it's done, and I know we always fought. The good news for me was legislation started to be developed that would create that cooperative process, that we could come together in more realistic discussions to prevent that contentious process that we did protecting our tax base as they want to expand their tax base. And I really thought that with the new laws, you know, with all the possibilities of JEDs and everything else, in this particular case, I don't personally think a JED was realistic. I think JEDs are more realistic to those places where there's vacant land, one property owner, that type of thing. But I think we have made many attempts. We have attempted to be cooperative, and no other community short of Canton is being impacted by that Hall of Fame Village development more than we are in that general area. So we not only have to look at it from our constituents' standpoint, we have to look at it from a tax base standpoint as well. And I really thought that we were moving in the right direction with cooperative effort, and it seemed like things were going pretty good. And I don't quite understand what some of their reasoning was as to why we could not at least start looking at some of those properties over there for a cooperative effort. And I'm going to continue to use that word cooperative because we tried. We tried.
For 9 to 12
Even when some of our citizens said, don't make any deals with them. Because that's old school, hard and fast anti-annexation. And I realize from a cooperative standpoint, we've got to look at those things where we say, you know, do we want 100% of nothing or do we want 50% of something? And, you know, I can do the math. So I thought we were moving the right direction, and, you know, when we got this information, it really wasn't what I expected to hear. I thought maybe they'll be looking at maybe wanting to do some other things with the contract or the, but it just seemed to me like it was a flat out no. Is that accurate?
On this particular property, it is.
Okay.
And I would add, legally speaking, I think it's important to remember that these have all been expedited type 2 annexations. That means the property does stay in the township for tax purposes. So I think that's an important piece of the puzzle as you look at the issues, you look at services, you look at those kinds of things. So, but yeah, on this particular piece of property, it was clearly a no. And we had, as you all know, tied some other areas together with it to explore.
Sure. Yes.
And it seems that that's kind of off the table at this point as well.
Okay.
So.
All I have, hopefully we're looking in the future that the days of annexation and working together, and you both said it really well, but working together as a whole, as a team, city and townships can both benefit, making profits for their residents. Sharing tax, sharing bed tax, all of those things together is all a team effort by city and townships where now we can work and bring in more money on both ends. Leaving that meeting, I was deflated. I felt, and I looked at Eric, and we both were like exhausted just from, and I know how hard he's worked on putting this together. It was such a great plan that he did and put together to be able for us and them to work together and bring that money to our residents. And when we left there, I was like someone punched me, and it looked like someone punched you. It just felt, wow, this didn't work like we thought it would. So, and Scott and John, you both said it well, so that's all I need to add to it. I just felt like when we left there, it was just all of that hard work for like running a race and never getting to finish.
Any further? Okay, that'll conclude unfinished business. New business, Mrs. Campbell?
Yeah, we have Mr. Dave Torrance with us from the Stark County Engineers who would like to address the board about the Whipple Avenue project.
Thank you, Lisa. Board members, thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time tonight. What I'd like to do, if it's all right with you, is update you on a few projects we've got going this year, and then kind of explain the Whipple Avenue project that we're working on. Our countywide paving program is finishing up. Obviously, Easton is 99% done. They've got a little bit of cleanup work to do. North Star Asphalt is doing our countywide program, resurfacing throughout the county. There's 2 more sections of Middle Branch. We're going to pave Middle Branch north from Easton up to Apple Grove, and then the northernmost part in the township, I think it's Diamond Street to the north, on Middle Branch will be paved also. And it should be, they may even start next week. Should be as soon as next week. You guys have all been aware of our Everhard and Whipple project. That job is still scheduled to start next year, 2018. It'll be a 2-season project. I need to get with Joe about, there's some changes to the Stratmore signal that we're in the process of making. That's a signal that is actually a township signal. I think we're going to need to take that over because it's now tied into the new venue signal. So we're going to have to, I'm sorry, Joe, but I'm going to have to take that off your hands. I know you're going to be disappointed.
Keep taking me off.
Yeah, great
Ryan,
work, Joe.
Yeah. Joe's told me many times he wishes you guys would give him another signal. So if you want to find one for him, that'd be great. So yeah, that's in the works. The venue, the developer ended up paying for that signal in its entirety. So that's, I believe, scheduled to be turned on Friday of this week, I believe, August 24th.
You know, the venue's totally full now.
It is. That's a real, and it's a nice development.
Yeah,
They've done a nice
it's a
job.
huge.
They've done a great job with that.
Yeah.
So in addition to the Everhard and Whipple project, the other thing that we've got going on is we've gotten some funding from SCATS for resurfacing of Whipple Avenue all the way from Tuscarawas Street up to Belden Village Avenue. So it's about a,
Geez, that's huge.
yeah, it's a big project. It's about a $2.3 million project. We're going to resurface it, do some signal upgrades, back plates, battery backup on the signals, so it's a little bit of a safety improvement as well as just straight resurfacing. What we're looking at and what I've come to you to ask for your consideration is giving us a $25,000 local match for the project. What this will do is we're going to apply for OPWC funding. We've asked all 4 of the townships that Whipple Avenue borders if they would consider giving us $25,000 to apply towards the local share. It gets our OPWC points up, and then the benefit, of course, to all the residents is that'll give us more money locally out of our budget to do even more paving. So Jackson Township has agreed to give us the $25,000. I'm still talking to Perry and Canton. Their portions are a little smaller than both what you and Jackson Township have. But again, that's our intention, is if you're able to come up with that funding, we would be able to stretch our paving dollars further and get some of the main roads. What we're looking at, the next few roads we're looking at in the township, just so you know, Hartmont, the south leg of Middle Branch, Martindale. We're actually going to be out on Martindale this year. Our paving crews have started doing a pretty good job on some maintenance paving, so we're going to hit Martindale again this year. But then, you know, next year we're looking at Hartmont, the south end of Middle Branch, some other things like that. Boy, there was something else I was going to mention project-wise. Can't remember what it was. If you got any questions, anything I can answer for you.
Dave, you had told me that part of the Whipple project, you'll be paving some of the
Yeah.
side streets.
Yeah, and
so far back.
there's 10 to 13, 10, 15 township side streets. We'll take care of all the approaches and all that stuff. You know, we're going to do that as that's already in the plans. And that's the other thing I was going to say. What we've done in the past is offered, if you know, if you guys have another OPWC application or you have something else going on, we can help you with to make it make sense for you. Joe always does a good job of getting that stuff with me. I know Gary does all kinds of favors for Joe. Whether Joe wants them or not, yeah. Most of the time, whether Joe wants them or not. So, I think that's it.
How far north, Dave?
It goes all the way to Belden Village Avenue, so it's about 4 miles
Yeah.
total. Starts at Tuscarawas.
I mean, based upon the approaches, how far back do you typically go on those approaches? I mean, if you had to
10,
average.
10 to 20 feet, depending on what we're doing.
No, but we have some other stuff going on in the area that Dave and I've run around and think we can work some things out, so.
So I mean, based on again, collaborative partnership on a larger scale project that enhances the township as well. I mean, this appears to be good, justifiable value.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a lot of
A lot of
businesses along
businesses
there.
in
That's
there.
right, we have, you know, when you start there at 20th Street and start looking at everything on the east side, that's a lot, that affects a lot of people.
Plan on, if the board's okay, we'll do a resolution at the next next meeting, pass that.
I'm in support of that.
I'm good with that.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Thank you,
Thank you.
appreciate your time, thank you all very
Sure,
much.
thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Is there, with that grant, is there anything to do with, you know, the signals in this, for emergency stuff?
Like preemption?
Yeah.
I can check with Brian, I know he's
I don't know
looking
if
at,
that
yeah, back
Would
plates.
help anything with the
Right.
grant? Sometimes-
Yeah, that does make a difference sometimes. I know we have a lot of issues and luckily it's outside your area, but with the Jackson Township Fire Station up there on University, right by the. right
Even if
by-
we could only get one on Whipple and Everhard.
Right.
That would be,
Yeah,
for
okay.
Jackson and us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we could look at that,
Or
absolutely.
Belleville, any of those.
Well, and Whipple and Everhard, I gotta check. That I would think is in the plans for that project.
Or Bell Village Street, any
Right,
of those right
right.
through there. 'Cause
Okay.
Jackson has both used that for egress to the freeway.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know there's so much traffic there.
Yeah,
Half the
yes,
time
there
you
is.
can't get anywhere. We've been kicking around some access management ideas and things through the Belden Village area, and we've got some projects coming up through that. You know, just to try to limit left turns and control traffic a little bit better. Because the fire services, when at the height of the day, you can't get through there. You can't get through Belden Village at all, and that's a concern, obviously. So, yeah, I'll get back
If
to
there's anything I
Yeah. no,
can
Chief, I
give you or
appreciate it.
help with, then we can do that.
Great, all right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That wraps up your business and takes us to fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf?
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of pending warrants in the amount of $290,323.29.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for July.
If anybody's got any questions, feel free to see Tom after.
Fiscal Officer number 5A and B are the bank reconciliations for June and July. And Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And that concludes the Fiscal Officer report.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Turn it over to our administrator.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to approve the printing and creation and editing of the 2017 Plain Township Fall newsletter.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion,
I look for that to hit mid-October. We are going to have the information about the Veterans Day event, also trick or treat, and just save the date for Winterfest will be in there too. If we hit it in October, then it'll give good timing then for our winter one, as far as it's spread out. It seems like our spring and summer can be far apart, but then when we go fall and winter, we have so many community events that these tend to fall closer together.
any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution to pay the U.S. Postal Service for the postage of the 2017 Plain Township Fall newsletter.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Okay, my next item is, I'm going to pass out a copy to each of you. This is the Plain Township Asset Management for our Plain Township Division of the Sheriff's Office. you're going to see on the entire, under each department head's report tonight, a goal that we had all set to complete this year, which is to do an asset inventory, asset management inventory, starting with big things like vehicles and larger equipment. Of course, Tom had the most difficult portion because he has a whopping 2 vehicles. So, I mean, I think he barely got done. But what I'd like to do is ask, I almost said detective, but Lieutenant Koenig to come forward, because I don't want to take credit where... I did? Oh,
That's okay.
Sergeant Koenig.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
He's a lieutenant in my eyes after this.
Oh.
But he, you know, I had to give credit where credit is due, and this is something that Captain Springer and I had started, and then I know that he gave to Sergeant Koenig. He worked very hard to put together our asset management. Do you have a copy with you?
I don't have it with me.
I'll give you a
I've
copy.
pretty much memorized it.
Yes.
I think.
So I could sit here and go through it like, you know, I put it all together. It was a collaborative effort, but I have to give the majority of the work was done by Sergeant Koenig. So if you just want to quickly go through what we did create, and I'll start with that, is like on vehicles, we wanted, you know, the vehicle number, the year it was purchased, the model, how many miles, the life expectancy, about how much to replace it, and any other features. And that's what you're going to see on all of the department heads' report. And what it does is gives us an overall idea of, besides our inventory, where it stands, and gives us an idea of long-term forecasting for our budget. So you can take a look through the entire packet and say, okay, we have, you know, 3 cars over 100,000 miles. So those are the 3 we should be looking to replace. When should we be looking to replace them? How many years out to purchase all of them? So it gives you an idea of some very good long-term forecasting.
And I think the most important thing about, like, the first 4 pages is just everything associated with each vehicle. So yeah, you have the vehicle column, but you also have whether or not there's a radar associated with that vehicle, the video system. I think there's a couple lasers in here. What else do we have? I think that those are the radio.
The radios are in there.
So everything. I think
You even put we have the tasers in here,
Shotgun,
Shotgun rifle,
the
yeah.
laptops,
Yes.
the handheld radios. So you're really looking at the assets of the sheriff's division, the Plain Township Sheriff's Division, because it's not, for us, it's not just a vehicle. We purchase everything that goes inside that vehicle that we need to look
Right.
at, keep track of, and see when do we possibly need to replace this for good budgeting.
Yeah, and it's a package. I guess it's a package
It's a
deal.
package.
It's the easy way to say it, but yeah, everything that's associated with each vehicle is basically broken down. And I think the only thing that I didn't put on here, because we just got it, were the rifles. That I have to add. So we're waiting on just to get some info on the rifles, and then they'll go on with the shotguns. So yeah, it's basically a breakdown of everything. Everything that we use in day-to-day that's purchased for our use.
Yeah, and it's a living, breathing document, so as things are added to the vehicle or equipment, we'll keep adding to this, just like with the shotgun.
Yeah, it's changing. You know, anytime a purchase gets made, obviously it's going to evolve, or something gets replaced, you know, we can throw that in there and make a notation of what it was replacing.
Yeah, and so when we go to purchase a vehicle, the board will see, okay, it's not just the cost of the vehicle. You can flip through the packet and see, you know, what all goes in that vehicle and the cost, and where are we in some of our older vehicles and what do we need to replace. So
Correct.
it really is, you're looking at the nuts and bolts of all of your equipment in the sheriff's department. And it really did take a lot of time and effort on your end, Sergeant Koenig, and I appreciate your help very much, and Captain Springer.
And
a lot of work there, too.
Sergeant Hall and Captain
Sergeant
Springer
Hall
were very
also.
helpful in
It was a really
getting this
team.
thing compiled. But now that we have it, it's like, said those
Right,
rifles.
work. I know, and this is something that obviously we addressed the North Canton YMCA. I mean, it's proven to be very beneficial, and that's why when I threw it out there. We knew it was gonna take some legwork, however, I mean, hopefully it does help, you know, even in working with Tom's office and Luther, just pulling all those numbers that, hey, what do I need to budget for? Well, can you be looking at our asset management specific to the department or under the one consolidated document and go, okay, here's where we're falling, or hey, we're ahead of plan on this.
And the department heads and our team did, you know, my goal was let's have it done by December. They really had it done, were prepared before this meeting, I'd say about 5 months early, so everybody took it with seriousness and really completed it, so. Thank you very much, I can't thank your whole team enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that just dovetails into some of our goals when they say we need to make these purchases. So this even extends it out even farther so that it's truly transparent.
Yes.
So when they tell us they want to buy a particular vehicle, it's not as if it just developed overnight.
Right, and it's not a surprise.
Exactly.
Yes.
I mean, with looking at how we're funded as compared to other folks when they go through their budgeting process, we've got, I think Chuck put it best, maybe even John put it best. And you're looking 5, 10 years out. It's not like, hey, we get to go back to the city and ask the mayor, hey, we need more money.
Yeah.
I mean, with levy, it's truly long-term foresight plan.
You're doing, you know, that term of the levy is, you know, if you know you have to make X amount of purchases, you have to plan for that. So you have to set that aside based on capital funds, so.
Yeah, that's right. And this helps you, and that's what we do as department heads too, is we don't budget for a year or forecast for a year, it's really 5 to 10 years out.
At least the term of the levy.
Yes.
Good word.
I just have one quick question. Help me out here with the rifles. Are we looking at rifles if we're buying new vehicles, new deputies, and then, because why are we replacing rifles? I have rifles like forever.
We don't, Plain Township doesn't own rifles.
We
We've
don't have
been
a
using
shotgun.
the
I'm talking about shotguns.
shotguns.
Yeah, we have
We've
shotguns.
been using the sheriffs. Am I
Yes.
correct? Yeah, we don't
Yes.
own our own. We've always been using the sheriffs.
Okay.
So as we purchase new vehicles, and we just purchased 4,
We'll be
we're
looking at
purchasing shotguns.
With each
These
vehicle.
will basically show us what will be replaced in new vehicles.
Yes.
And then as we can, then we'll be adding to our fleet over time.
Gotcha. That helps.
Just like how we never had tasers, and then we got, after the levy passed, we were able to get tasers,
That
so.
makes sense, now, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you for your time, and that's the end of the administrator's report.
Takes us to the fire department, Chief Schalberg.
Item number 1 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize purchase and payment of labor costs for installation of outboard seal kits for All American Fire for Engine 4 per attached quote. Just to give you a little history on that, the mechanics, that's a huge job for them, and we don't farm much out to the outside world, but this, they actually have to pull the whole pump housing down, and they thought it would be a little bit better use of time for them in garage space. So that's why we did choose to send that out, I guess, versus internally do that.
I will so move.
Second?
Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 2, resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment to Uniontown Fire Department and other various vendors in the amount not to exceed $14,000 for the 10% matching fee for the 800 megahertz FEMA grant to be taken from Capital Fund 21A02I.
So moved. Second. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize the payment to Uniontown Fire Department to not to exceed $40,000 for the purchase of 800 megahertz radios per attached quote to be taken from 21A02I.
I will so move.
Second?
To discussion, And just to clarify, I mean, the work you guys did was truly phenomenal. I mean, this is a huge grant, so to collaborate with the other outside agencies and them when, I mean, really what's been a small cost on the front end. You know, our portion you previously referenced, $134,000 of radio equipment with installation. We had an additional need for some other piece parts. It puts us to right around $169,000. So once you net out the grant funds versus our purchases, we're essentially getting $170,000 worth of equipment for $51,000. And that's based upon some of the Motorola pricing that's lower than the state and so forth. So I mean, you guys are truly to be commended for what it took to pull that together. But again, those aren't, coming out of our levy dollars. These are additional financial resources that are out there. So we're absolutely exhausting every option so we can further extend the use of our taxpayers' dollars.
And, when you write that grants, or those grants, to convince them that the project, because they always talk about the project that you are trying to get a grant for, when you put in the narrative how that's going to be used in conjunction with how the system is going to work, that's what those grant reading people like to see. And I think the fact that, hopefully we're eventually all going to be on one, that makes a huge difference in being able to get federal dollars for radio equipment.
And, it's and I think, with these type of, since we are a larger township, we're not eligible for some of the
Correct.
state fire marshal grants.
Yeah.
So partnering with Lake Township, basically, those three entities, that, I think that was huge in the grant. And Motorola, I mean, they definitely sharpened their pencil, because if you look at some of those prices, I mean, we bought radios almost 10 years ago that cost more than those portables. So it's, I mean, they definitely came to the plate and sharpened their pencil there a little bit.
Good job.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
I guess these are our vehicles and stuff. I didn't put all the light bars and stuff, Knox boxes and radios in mine. We could do it that way. We attach our inventory just a little different, but for the actual vehicles that we have and mileage, but we could do it that way if you'd rather have the breakdown of what it costs for all the other equipment. So.
I mean, I think honestly the critical things are the year life expectancy, so then that, and then obviously the replacement costs. So those are the three
That's opinion right there.
critical factors. Because I mean, like on a cruiser, let's say like on a cruiser, I mean, you're getting a cruiser for 25, 30 grand, but then there's up to another 15, 20 grand.
They're two different
So
things.
no different, with, medic units
Yeah.
and so forth. Okay, hey, you're dumping, say, 275 to, what, 300,000 in a medic unit, there's gonna be, let's say, another
Yeah.
$35,000 to $50,000 could possibly go into it. And I'm just using an arbitrary number there. So, I mean, this is definitely a great start, because obviously, to get down to the super granular level, some of it, we take more time managing the tool than,
And it's tough for us, and I'm sure Road's the same way, to forecast out money for, like the ladder truck. We're talking like $1 million truck in 25 years, maybe 24 years from now. It could be $1.7 million. I put 1.2.
Yeah.
I mean, a 4% increase. I mean, it's tough with those big ticket items.
Yeah.
It could be all electric by then. I don't know. I mean, so I mean,
Solar power.
Solar power. I don't know, but
They're doing something with drones.
yeah. But at least it's a starting point. Fire engines maybe 750. I mean, it's tough to figure out 20 years.
You're dealing with much bigger equipment.
yeah. Any questions for Chuck on? Please. Do you have anything else, Chuck?
No, that's it for the fire department. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll take us to the road department. Mr.
Yes,
Agostino.
Mr. Chairman, all I have tonight is also my asset management. My My equipment, such as the international dump trucks, do include all the snow equipment in that price. And the life expectancy is from 2017 on, not from the actual date that the truck was purchased. So just to
Joe,
clarify that.
you have on there not replacing one of the backhoes, or we're not gonna need a backhoe, or that backhoe, that, you know, just. what do you
We
do
don't
with that?
use it now, since we bought the mini excavator and the grade also, it very rarely goes out, so, I mean, as you can see, it's a 1993,
Still pretty operable,
and it
though?
still runs,
You
so.
can use it for when you need it?
I don't see in the future that we could be replacing that with a backhoe. We might go to another mini excavator, which is more,
What would a new one cost?
a new backhoe?
Yeah.
Well, you're probably looking up about 180,000 nowadays.
Good call. We don't need it.
Where a mini excavator, we can get it for 50 to 60,000. So,
And they work just, they do the
yeah,
same.
they're more versatile too, so.
Too, if it gets to the point where it's not used at all, we can always look at auction and got deals if.
Yeah, right now, we use it around the garage sometimes, you know, it's,
But
it's
you use,
It's still,
it's not to the point to get rid of it.
it's still a greater value to us. than the-
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like Chuck said, these costs, some of these 10 to 12-year, 15-year projections could be a lot higher than we have, like, so it's like, boost them up on the longer ones. I would try to get 1 or 2 a year, you know, just keep.
I was gonna say, that's the one thing, I mean, I think we've done good all the way
Starting
around.
to get caught up.
Yeah. Well, some of it based upon how you've been, recommendations you've made in investing in, you know, whether it's the stainless beds instead of the old steel beds.
Yeah, that prolong their lives.
That sure does.
Stainless beds.
very good.
Joe? Zoning Department, Mr. Ferrara.
Thank you, sir. Item number 1 is a resolution to declare item A as a nuisance abatement.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And item number 2, before we go into item number 2, I'd like to point out that of the 13 nuisance payments you see before you, 9 of them, or A through I, were completed under ORC 50587C and E, the 4-day nuisance abatement.
Which is the new one that we recently approved
Yes.
within a month,
Yes.
a month ago.
We were able to get the nuisance abatements properties, 9 of them completed. What we did was we turned them in 3 at a time, so that we would try not to overwhelm Rob, and he did a great job. As you see, he did 13 abatements.
Gosh, Rob, you must be exhausted.
I pace myself.
Working late.
That's good, that works.
So item number 2 is a resolution to declare items A through L as nuisance payments.
I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
And item number 3 before you is an exhaustive asset management list.
Appreciate the extra hours you put in to
Yeah.
get that done.
I think I helped Joe and Chuck do theirs too. They were having a hard time.
It was 2 whole vehicles. It was stressful for Tom.
We had a lot of meetings with Lisa too.
Yes, to go over them.
You know, I know, hopefully maybe someday can happen, but it'd be nice if we could get your vehicles and get them under roofs, you know, we got them out. It just would be nice if we get
Wholeheartedly
something,
agree on that.
especially for the winter and get the snow's not on it and,
He has
Hopefully.
one in the garage.
well, the other one's out there too, so.
Can we get the admin car out of the garage maybe?
Oh,
Sure, Tom, what the hell?
Never mind.
The shot.
Rob will be busy mowing anyway, you might as well.
The shot just went across the bow there.
you know, I don't know, for someday we can get our own
We can put it in Station
We
4.
can put it in Old Forest.
It's out of line.
Yeah. I mean, Tom can just move his office to Old Station 4.
I think I'm being punished.
Rocco, give him a key.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take us to the Parks Department, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Item number 1 is the asset management, which is in front of you. You did notice that we purchased a lot of pieces of equipment or vehicles seemingly at once. So we looked at them and tried to spread some of those out based on Logan's recommendations as far as the maintenance is coming in and out of it.
Okay, no questions? Okay.
And then the second item I have tonight is just a resolution to authorize the concrete work to be done for the flagpoles up by the monument with Dickerson Concrete Company in an amount not to exceed $3,700 from Fund OF08W and to be paid upon completion of the job.
I would so move. Second. Discussion, just for reference, Mr. Dickerson is the one that come in and did our CAD for our flagstone monument up there. He essentially did that for free. He got the material donated at cost, I believe. So for the sake of uniformity and consistency, that's part of the benefit of having him do that, so he matches
Get a little match
what we have. But you know, from a competitive pricing aspect, nobody's touched this either.
No.
So
And that saves us in the long run, because, you know, we talked about, first of all, to come off of that existing circle with any kind of honor guard, you want that to be a smooth transition. You want it so that, you know, as they're moving forward, they don't need any kind of extra steps or anything. And the other thing is, even if we would have done it in some kind of brick or block, you have everything growing up through. So I just think doing it this way is going to, first of all, it's going to look nicer, but it's also going to add to consistency in that walkway for honor guards as they go in and move about there. So,
And the board did receive the $5,000 donation, which will cover this.
yeah, actually that was,
More than cover.
we'll say Mr. Lemon was pushing him once before and then soliciting for another event. He definitely come through big time
Yeah.
for us.
and we spent a lot of time with, everybody was involved as we looked at that project, where best to put the poles, how do we want to do the approach. You know, we had input from everybody, so I kind of like the final. Did you use a laser, Linda? Did you use a laser to make sure those were all in
We
line?
will before we drill.
All right, trust me, I was comments as well. We wanted perfect symmetry.
Well, we did some crude measurements, and then when we went back off the crude measurements, we went a lot more precise, and we were only off by like 6 inches.
John, I know Rob can tell you when I met him Friday along with Garden Club for something additional over there. First thing he did was I looked, I'm like, this thing's tilted over. I'm like, has John seen this yet? You know, that linear consistencies.
And just wanted to remind folks that our farmer's market has extended into September. So we've got, including tomorrow, 6 more dates.
Oh, speaking of the farmer's market, if I could, I didn't add at the beginning, but Rob and I and Eric will be working on a liquor license that will have to be voted on. I got from the Ohio Department of Liquor Control a rejection of the permit. And so I called because I hadn't heard anything. And they had said that they were trying to get a hold of our council and didn't get any phone calls back. So I called Eric. They hadn't tried to get a hold of Eric. So what we're going to do is, when I was on the phone with them, we're going to work to put on site-specific. We can even designate just for the farmer's market. We could say from May to September only to put on for the public to vote on a liquor license for that reason only. But
We worked over a year ago
to start this
To launch that.
process.
So we went, and I know I've been approached over there and outside of there.
We've been approached by vendors, by businesses. It would have been a very, by patrons, it would have been something that would have brought in a lot of business, a lot of money, would have brought more people in. And I was just shocked when I got the, the letter, not having heard anything. So we're just going to work. Eric has done these kind of things before, and we'll put them on the ballot.
All right, Township Council. All right, we'll get it done, all right. Okay, thank you. Nothing around the law director? Communications, Ms. Campbell.
Okay, here we go. So this one is to Joe Icino from Chem Grows. And on behalf of Kevin Shiplet, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and myself, we wish to thank you and the entire Plain Township Road Crew for all their contributions and effort regarding the recently concluded Hall of Fame enshrinement and game. Because 17th Street Northwest and Helen Place Northwest is used as the designated shuttle routes between the fairgrounds and Tom Benson Stadium, the removal of parking is very helpful to the SARTA drivers. Also, thank you for coordinating everything and for the installation of temporary no parking signs on streets within the jurisdiction of both Plain and Canton Townships. We appreciate your continued support and cooperation and look forward to working with you again in 2018. The enshrinees, fans, and visitors who made the trip to our city were truly amazed by the warm hospitality shown to them. We could not have accomplished what we did without your assistance. Respectfully, Ken Groves. And if you'll share that with your team, Joe.
You guys always step up. Over there.
Get that down to science.
They sure do.
And then not to be outdone, to the Plain Township Fire Department, thank you for your efficient response to my washing machine crisis. You set my mind to ease by moving it to the garage and checking everything out. Thank you so much. Paula Birch. And,
That's above and beyond service there, I'm sure.
oh, did I skip a couple?
Yeah.
Where did they go?
Yeah, two more.
Thank you,
Oh, you know
Farmers
what?
Market. Thank you, Farmers
All right.
Market.
Oh, well, let me go to communication number 1, which is very nice. It's from Matthew, am I saying his last name right? Gagnon?
Gagnon.
To my concern, I wanted to take a moment to thank Scott Haas and Joe Iacino for assisting me with a drainage issue that I had in my yard. I called Scott Haas about the issue, and within 24 hours, I was contacted by Joe with a remedy to my hardship. I'm a lifelong resident of the community and value the services provided by the township very much. I also want to thank Rob Steinberg and the Parks crew for an amazing community park and Diamond Park facilities. What an asset to our community. You do not get enough credit for the fine work that you all do. I felt it was important for you to know you are appreciated. And then a very nice one from Stark Soil and Water to Jenna for the farmers market. Dear Jenna and Plain Township, thank you for allowing us to be a part of your farmers market this summer. We enjoyed working with the kids, promoting conservation education. All markets were smoothly run with all the needed information beforehand. Great job. Thank you, Becca O'Neill, Education Specialist.
Good job. Concludes communications portion of the meeting. Public speaks. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to address the Board of Trustees? Okay, nothing. That'll take us to concerns of trustees. Thank you. Trustee Zabo. Okay. Concerns of the fiscal officer, Mr. Wolf.
No concerns.
Okay, this takes us to the approval of the minutes for August 8th, 2017, and I will so move.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes, we do have a need for executive session, so be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 6:53 p.m. from this regular meeting as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose and consideration of 1A, appointment of a public employee or official, 2B, the sale of property by competitive bid to prevent the disclosure of information that would provide competitive advantage. Second. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.